how do we get in touch with those 60 people?
Well, there are about 60 people on the commission. There are about 12 to 15 commissions nationwide, and I can give you that list. Samantha, I'll give it to you specially.
You know, I too have an agenda. Thank you.
I can get this low enough. My name is DJ Ito with NAPIMA, the National Asian American Pacific Islander Health Association. Tana, how are you? And I completely agree. I think the most important work, it's the one that comes from the heart. And I think you really, really exemplify that. It's not so much a question, but May is not only API Heritage Month, it's also National Mental Health Awareness Month. And today actually is National Children's Mental Health Awareness Month. And so each of you in your position as policymakers, I think one of the things that I'd like to really encourage is that as we make sure that mental health issues really are out there. I know in California, we're working very closely with the California Reducing Disparities Project, which is bringing together 54 organizations around the state to talk about mental health. And even though with Prop 63, people think there's a lot of money going into mental health issues there, you know, California's going broke. There's always the issue, and as the money's been cut, we really want to make sure we preserve the dollars, particularly on Medicaid, which is the highest provider of mental health services. One of the issues that at the state and local levels, if you can really, really push prevention dollars, and I know this is always an issue that prevention always gets brought to the plate. We've been fighting this issue for many, many years. We would greatly appreciate it if you know that prevention is critical. People with serious mental health problems die 25 years earlier than the general population. And this is oftentimes due to medical issues because their mental health issues need to get taken care of. Language access, something we've talked about, so in your recommendations, making sure that language access also includes training, not just hiring of interpreters, but training of interpreters so that our communities get quality services. Because they oftentimes use children, they use the secretary, they use somebody else to go in there. We see this over and over, so please make the recommendations that the resource at the state level to make sure that there's resources that are going there. Looking at, and there's so many other issues that I won't go into, but again, because this is Mental Health Awareness Month, really making sure that everything you do doesn't get lost. As we're talking about integrated healthcare reform, it's important that we're talking about, when you're talking about obesity and diabetes, there's a direct correlation between that and mental health issues. Last but not least, on May 21st, and we're very, very honored to be able to be co-hosting an event actually with the Asian Pacific Islanders with Disabilities. It's on May 21st in Washington, D.C. I just happen to have some flyers here. It's called Laughter's Best Medicine. And it really is, it's an evening that's going to be, it's meant to be an evening of fun, an evening of enjoyment, but it's because we're really recognizing the serious issues around mental health and disabilities. So I highly encourage you, I've got flyers for everybody, I really encourage you to be there, and again, it's May 21st, it's going to be George Washington University at the Betts Center. So again, and thank you for all the work that you guys are doing with the commissions. It's critical to getting our voice out for Asian American, Native Hawaiian Pacific. Thank you.
I want to just share with you, based on what she just said in terms of the importance of mental health awareness and services, one of the proudest moments of our commission was actually assisting someone with mental issues who was in the court system and had no representation. He was from the Laotian community, and we have one commissioner from that community, and he approached us to assist a disabled member to negotiate the criminal justice system. This was a person who was living in the neighborhood. He was a middle-aged man who had come from Laos and had limited English skills, as well as being mentally disabled, and had undergone horrific torture in his home country. And all he was doing was cleaning the streets where he lived, and he was known for that. And what happened was he was doing this at maybe 11 o'clock at night and opened the fire hydrant. Most of the police around there used to know him and just let him be. He basically cleaned the environment there. This was a new police officer who came in and did not know what he was doing. And basically, long story short, he was in prison. No one knew what happened. And so when the community came to us, we were able to get input from a number of commissioners and meet with the police community liaison officer. and also talk to the public defender's office to make them aware, give them the documents, do a lot of the work that he had no one to do for him. And for us, even though this was a single individual, a single instance, what it did was create these bonds with a very small community. The Laotian community is a small community who are fearful of authority in general. And this allowed us an entree into the community to really show what we can be doing together as a community. We had a meeting with the city, with the police department, and the case was resolved, very equitably, and the man is out. And now what's happened is, because of the mental health issues, the Asian community is reaching out. Because as you know, in the Asian community, there's a stigma about accessing mental health care. And we have a behavioral health unit in the city. And we're trying to make sure that they're aware of all these smaller sub-communities which comprise the Asian community and what are their specific issues that come up. And so this one incident created an opportunity for us to really get in there and also define for ourselves as a commission how we can be helpful, even if it's for one individual, and what that means for the larger community. So I just wanted to let you know that mental health is of great concern, especially in our senior citizens, many of them who are immigrants with limited language capabilities, English language capabilities, and because of the amount of work many of these disadvantaged communities have to do, they don't have time for their elders. And so creating spaces and creating community centers with programs for these communities is very, very important. As we know, in the Asian community, we honor our elders, but that honor kind of seems to, sort of level off in terms of care of their mental health when they're coming here and can't actively participate as the younger folks can. So it's of critical importance that we take care of all our vulnerable citizens, from the youngest to the oldest, and I thank you for bringing that point up.
Hi, I'm Ben de Guzman. I do nonprofit consulting with LGBT and Filipino American communities, and I'm glad that Samantha asked the question about coordination among all the commissions, so I don't have to ask that question. But I was interested in knowing more about kind of specific examples of how commissions work with other commissions. So, are there specific stories or lessons learned in terms of how either state or local or national API commissions work with other commissions, whether it's like, here in DC we have the LGBT commission, or if there are other stories about like Latino commissions or other things. So I think that would be helpful to know also.
I do want to hug the mic, but anybody else? I do have examples of our commission working with others, especially because we're not a funded commission. So, the mayor was very happy to put our commission together, but there's no dollars behind it. So clearly, that is an impediment to doing a lot of this work. So what we have to be creative, and that's where a lot of best practices are coming out in terms of a coalition building that's happening here, and that's happening with other commissions within our city as well. We work closely with the African and Caribbean Immigrant Commission, and we have a lot of similar issues, specifically in the area of immigration, because as Congresswoman Chu just pointed out, that's been the deportation level has been very high and has affected the Cambodian community in Philadelphia, as well as some African communities in Philadelphia. So what we have been able to do is create coalitions to bring awareness to the issue for the larger population to understand why are these deportations unfair, because they're supposed to be targeting criminal residents, people with criminal backgrounds, or who have been incarcerated, and they've served their time, but unfortunately they can be deported. So just to give you a little background, it was the Illegal Immigration Reform and Immigrant Responsibility Act, which was passed in 1996, eliminated the judicial discretion from the removal process and expanded the categories of mandatory deportation many people have been sent back for minor crimes, including public indecency. That's not what the intent of it was. So clearly we had to join forces, and one of the things that we understood was education. And so recently we did a large collaboration with the local public radio and TV station and screened 9500 Liberty, which is again, I don't know, many of you might know Eric and Annabelle, who put this movie, Annabelle Park, put this movie together, Eric Byler and Annabelle Park, and they came in with the movie. We had a large immigration forum put together with many different input from many different communities, including specialists from the universities around us. And we talked about the impact of such devastating kind of local laws, and the movie actually nicely exemplified how a community did something, then they had to sort of backtrack and say it was not beneficial for the community from an economic perspective. But that's just one example of how collaborations are really important so that it spreads the word, and our biggest interest is getting allies. Not just from, getting allies from the majority community, meaning the white population is who we really need to get involved and feel like this is an issue for them as well. So this is just one example of how we work with the African Caribbean Commission, and we also do joint meetings, and our fundraising goals are also discussed because that's something we both suffer from.
Then I'll just say that what has happened already is that for our commission, the President's Commission, we did partner with California APA State Commission on the NHPI event. I believe we're partnering with Washington State in July. We're doing an Economic Green Summit. And so that's one of the things that, so from the federal level, our Presidential Commission, when we're going in to states with events that we are looking to partner. With this really today was our second conversation with a subset of the group. Just in this quick conversation, language, how to change regulatory language, statutory language in order to help facilitate the work of the commissions. That's one idea that came out. As you heard, California, Philadelphia, unfunded. And most of the commissions out there are unfunded. How do you do the work if you're unfunded, right? And so that has been one of the major topics, is how to share with each other, okay, how do we fund without really defunding ourselves as well, too. So that's a strategy as well. The other major area which some of the commissions, with the change of administrations, because many of these commissions are either governor appointed or mayoral appointed, with the change of administrations, it also leaves Ohio State is one where they had a change in governorship, so the last commission is unsure of their status right now because of the political.
Pennsylvania too. Our governor's commission is not anymore.
Right. So how can we as a group help to continue to show the government entities how important it is to retain these commissions, no matter what party is in power? So these are some of the conversations that we are having and hoping to help support one another.
Could I add one more thing to this? I kind of feel the pain of lack of coordination, both horizontally at local levels across counties and states, and vertically with the state government, because I represent a county for the most part, and it's today, even though I speak for the state. But even, I think there are 2 points. One is how each of us need to be cognizant of taking the extra step to inform people and communicate about what you're doing, your issues that you're struggling with, and getting other people's help and input. Because maybe they are waiting just for you to reach out, or ideas didn't come to them until you say something about certain things. And I'm such a terrible offender of just doing what I'm doing and getting so busy because I have no staff, that sometimes I don't take the time to communicate with other people or take the time to coordinate, because it does take a lot of effort. And so that, which is second, and that speaks to the second issue, which is discipline. You really need to focus on that. If this is a priority, if coordination is a priority, in and of itself is like a job. You have to spend the time following up and telling people what you're doing. And that's very demanding in this internet age when people get so overloaded with information. At local level, I just paid a compliment to Daphne at the beginning of this panel. Before this panel, I said I have not seen this level of outreach from federal government to local commissions and local communities before, and I'm very pleased that things are happening in my backyard that I'm aware of now, that I can send out people to participate and be part of. So it is a level of awareness we need to raise and a level of effort. Discipline. We need to actually, we know it's important, but we don't do it, you know? And it's really an embarrassingly low level of coordination, because I think that Governor, now the White House has daily emails to my email box saying, oh, the president just issued a statement about killing of the, you know, Osama bin Laden or whatever it is. Okay, all of that is important, but can we have a national level database? Because I don't really care if you're a Republican president or a Democratic president, our communities need some change. We still need to advocate. The same group of people are still going to be involved, right? So if we could have a national level, some kind of coordination with each state's active commissions members or whatever, so there is some kind of institutional practices and knowledge being exchanged, and maybe at some national regional conferences and things like that, then we don't have to depend on political wind shifts. You know, I would love to see that.
If I could chime in too, I'm breaking my traditional sit there and be quiet. Ben, thank you for the question. You know, I was on that call, that first call that we had, and I'm glad there are efforts. Actually, to kind of this low. While I was on the call, I heard Kendee on there, and I'm like, okay, Seattle, Washington. I know there's Pacific Islanders there. I have family there. I get on the website, Google it, see. One of my cousins is one of the commissioners. Seattle. And real cousin. And I also see that Noah's there. And, you know, again, these are unfunded efforts, but, you know, it just boils down to, you know, going back to the passion and interest and curiosity. I've been the diplomatic squeaky wheel in our community. We also have our hardcore, you know, but we just try to identify who's the right person to send to advocate or to investigate. There are efforts, you know, and I appreciate how you mentioned, you know, it's one of those where all our plates are full, you know, and it just so happened that while on that call, I decided to Google and check out Washington's commission and notice, you know, and through the coconut line, what we call, you know, they were interested, they heard about our event in Southern California. Steph and I are very much supportive. You know, we'll find our own funds to get ourselves out there. You know, use some family member who has a frequent flyer and has 2 rewards. We're going to find a way, because we find it that it's you know, a true cause, and so we want to go out there and help out, not as commissioners. You know, we may have that hat, but we're going out there to support our communities. There's a huge Samoan community in Seattle, and so we're looking. We had representatives from Utah come out to our event. They invited us to come out there, so, you know, efforts are being made. Right now it's, you know, through the Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander communities, but again, it's up to us to go to our communities, because we not only, you know, what I like about my community is that they'll hold me to it. You know, they'll call me out on things, and I'm glad I have thick Samoan skin, because I have to take that given this position. But, you know, it's our duty to go out there and find out, because a lot of times we think we know everything, but unless we really tap the untouched portions of our communities, we won't have that, and then it won't make for a better strategic approach from as the commissions from the different levels.
Well, I want to, Kendee, just one quick. We are hearing a common theme of lack of funding at different levels, city, state, national. And I think this is something that we all can work on, to say that somehow we have to make sure we are a priority, that we should be part of budgets. And if the only job I do is just advocate and collaborate with people to make that a priority, that the 6% of Asian Americans in Philadelphia need a seat at the table with respect to a line item on the budget, as do all of us. And I think that's something that comes from collaborating and getting a voice to say that, you know, money talks, and if we are able to do that, where it's great that we all volunteer and you labor of love for all of us, we'll still continue to have the passion, but we can have money along with that to really extend our passion. And I think it behooves us to move from that model minority myth and say, you know, we are going to be a little bit louder, a little bit more persistent about getting some funds for ourselves. And I think this administration is the place to start. It's already made a lot of overtures. now let's make some green to back those overtures. I think if we all put our heads together and see if we can not make that place happen for us, and going forward, we will be funded. And I really wish that we are able to do that. So I ask for all your help for that.
Kendee, I have a good practice to share, but I'll wait until you ask the next question.
Oh, no, we were actually going to conclude into the next portion, but if you'd like to say a brief statement real quick before we wrap up.
I said I have a good practice to share because oftentimes people think of these ethnic liaisons or commissions or these things as a feel-good exercise, as a cost center, to make sure your people are taken care of, to make sure you're holding their hands or whatever. It's also a top-down kind of approach. But I think it has been a game changer for me when I now can go back into the policymakers and anybody who think like that to say, this is a population retention strategy for our jurisdiction because we have some of the best educated people who, by a sheer effect of luck, of history, that because the economic situations really sucked in their home countries, some of the best and brightest, the best educated people in their home countries had to come here to make a living. So in the short window of time, we've got so many great talents. Let's take advantage of that, engaging them, making the most out of their education and human capital is a historical opportunity for us. And now they're sitting up and listening and say, oh, that's a revenue generation opportunity. No kidding, when the leads come from India and China, you better get your act together and entertain those delegations because you never know where they want to invest. And that's where the money comes from. The double-digit GDP growth versus barely 2% in the United States. Isn't that loud and clear? This is not just a feel-good exercise. We have real dollars coming in if you are not arrogant enough to say, oh, what are you doing? You know, another line dance.